Hey, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into this really fascinating ancient technique for self-awareness. And it's all about something we do, over 20,000 times a day without even thinking about it, breathing. But as you're about to see, the real secret isn't in the breath itself. It's hidden in the tiny little spaces in between.
So let me just ask you this. You breathe in, you breathe out. But what is actually happening in that tiny, almost invisible pause right as the inhale flips and becomes the exhale? You'd probably think, nothing. But according to this ancient text, that split second holds a pretty profound key to, well, understanding who you really are.
Okay, so let's get into it. The source text we're looking at gives us this incredibly specific instruction. And it's not about breathing deeply or holding your breath or anything like that. No, it's about paying attention to the precise moment of the turn. Now, what's so wild about this is the language. It doesn't say, while you're breathing, realize. It's very specific. It says, through both these turns, realize. So the magic, the opportunity, it isn't in the act of breathing itself, but in that pivot point. That tiny moment the inhale becomes the exhale, and then when the exhale becomes the next inhale. To really get this, we kind of have to completely change the way we picture breathing. Turns out, most of us have a basic misunderstanding of how the whole thing even works. So we tend to think of it like this. Breathing in is one thing, breathing out is another. Like two separate lines, right? But they're not. The source gives us this amazing new image to work with. Your breath is a circle. The inhale is just one half of the journey, and the exhale is the other half, completing the loop. And this just nails the core idea. Because if it's not two separate breaths, if it's one continuous circular motion, then there has to be a point, somewhere inside you where it turns around, a point where that incoming breath becomes the outgoing one. And that point, that's where we need to put our attention. So how in the world are we supposed to understand this turning point? Well, luckily, the text gives us a fantastic analogy that makes this whole abstract idea feel suddenly very real and actually kind of mechanical. First off, we've got to appreciate just how complex we are. Just think about your body for a second. It's like the most sophisticated machine ever built. You have no idea what's going on inside most of the time, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Just get this, you're basically a walking, talking city of 70 million living cells. I mean, that's 70 million little citizens inside of you, and the entire metropolis is just running silently, smoothly, every single second. It's this vast, intricate mechanism. Now, let's tie this back to the breath. If you've ever driven a stick shift, you know exactly what I'm talking about. To go from first gear to second, you have to pass through neutral. And that neutral point, it's not really a gear, is it? It's a moment of total disengagement. The turning of your breath is just like that. It's the body's neutral gear. And here's where it all clicks. In that moment, that fraction of a second when you're in that neutral gear, you aren't identified with your body and you're not identified with your mind. You're completely disengaged from the machine. You just are. Your pure existence. Okay, so this sounds pretty simple, right? Just watch the turn. But if you actually try it, you're going to immediately run smack into the biggest obstacle of all, and that's your own mind. And it's a totally fair question. Why is something that sounds so basic, just watching a tiny pause, so incredibly difficult? Well, the answer lies in what the source material calls our monkey heritage. See, our mind is basically hardwired by evolution to jump from branch to branch, from one thought to the next, from a worry to a memory. It literally cannot sit still. And because of that, most of us lack the basic capacity for just quiet, simple observation, because that little voice in our head just never, ever stops. So when this text tells us to observe, it doesn't mean think about it. Because the second you think, oh, here comes the turn, or wow, this is cool, I'm doing it, you've already jumped away. You're not observing anymore, you're analyzing. True observation is just being there with it. No words, no mental chatter, nothing.
So what happens when we can actually pull it off? When we do manage to quiet that monkey mind, even for a split second, and truly witness this turn? Well, something pretty profound happens. In that gap, a separation occurs. For the briefest of moments, the process of life, the breath, is happening, but it's distinct from you, the one who's watching it. It's like a space opens up between you and the whole mechanism. And this shows us just how deeply connected our breath and our thoughts are. The source points out that if you consciously hold your breath, your mind just stops. Well, this turning point is like a natural, automatic, tiny little stoppage. And in that pause, the mind pauses too.
Let's go back to that car analogy because it just perfectly captures this. The engine of life is still running, right? The power is on. But for that one moment, the car is not in gear. The mechanism that drives everything forward is temporarily disconnected from the body of the car itself.
And this is the whole point. This is the climax of the entire technique. It is right there, in that moment of disconnection, in that neutral gear, that the opportunity for realization pops up. To be aware of the turn is to become aware of the self that exists separately from all the processes of the body and the mind. So this whole simple act of observing the breath, it really leaves us with this huge question to think about. We spend our whole lives so identified with the machinery, right? With the house that is our body and our mind. But in that silent, neutral gap between breaths, we get this little glimpse, a hint, that maybe, just maybe, there's a master of the house in here too.